Pamela Anderson was one of the most iconic faces of the 90s. There was nowhere you could go to escape her. Her life was full of controversy, tragedy, and scandal, but in the end, her story is a testimony that you can overcome the toxicity of Hollywood and a tainted image. During the 90s and early 2000s, Anderson was probably the most sensual figure of that era. And with that, you know the men of Hollywood had a field day. But Pamela has been speaking out for a long time against the industry.
I think it's just a mystique about California. I think, when I lived in Canada, I wanted to come to California. That was my big dream. And I think that people in Europe and people all over America want to come to California, to Hollywood.
People in show business, and you'll learn this when you get to be my age, a lot of people in show business are parasites.
I've learned that already.
Yeah.
I have.
Blood-sucking parasites.
Blood-sucking,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And when I came to Hollywood, of course, I had a lot of offers to do private auditions and things that made absolutely no sense, just common sense. Don't go into a hotel room alone. If someone answers the door in a bathrobe, leave. Hollywood is very seductive and people want to be famous and sometimes you think you're going to be safe and with an adult in the room. I've been offered lots of things, a condo and a Porsche to be someone's number one girl, and I just naively said, well, there must be number two then, so I'm not interested. Money, homes, roles in movies. It was common knowledge that certain producers or certain people in Hollywood are people to avoid. You know what you're getting into if you go to a hotel room alone.
There is a trigger warning for this video because we will discuss some sensitive content, especially in regards to her childhood. But this is a deep dive into the life of Pamela Anderson. But first, hey friend, welcome to my channel, Creen Allude, where we deep dive and break down the most iconic stars in Hollywood. If you're not yet subscribed, please be sure to do so. And if you're already subscribed, please turn on your notification bell so you never miss an upload. Now, without further ado, let's get into this video. Let's start first with her childhood. Pamela Anderson's life story is one steeped in turmoil, and it all began in the quaint town of Ladysmith, British Columbia on July 1st, 1967. Born to Barry, a furnace repairman with a knack for gambling and mischief, and Carol, a waitress juggling two jobs to make ends meet, Pamela's childhood was anything but picture perfect. Right from the start, she was thrust into the spotlight, a centennial baby, celebrated for her birth on Canada's 100th anniversary. But behind the scenes, her family life was a chaotic storm. Her father, a man of dubious morals and questionable stability, created a home filled with hostility that Pamela and her brother had to navigate. They often found refuge from their parents' explosive arguments, which were laced with biting words and deep-seated resentment. The dark undercurrents of Pamela's youth included more than just shouting matches. Her mother, in a desperate bid to escape Barry's volatile grip, left him multiple times, each time returning to dire circumstances. But in the end, they did make it work. They are together now, living in Canada with Pamela Anderson. Living on welfare, they faced a life of poverty that weighed heavily on young Pamela. But the real horror was yet to come. In a shocking revelation she made in 2014, she disclosed that she was taken advantage of, if you can catch my drift and read between the lines. She was touched without her consent in a very intimate manner by a female babysitter from the ages of 6 to 10, a nightmare that would haunt her for years. Pamela fought to shield her younger brother from the horrors she faced, often feeling like a prisoner in her own skin. The torment inflicted upon her was so severe that she once fantasized about ending babysitter's life, an act of desperation that eerily coincided with the babysitter's tragic car accident the very next day. So the day that she thought this and, even expressed it that she wants this babysitter dead, the babysitter ended up dying the next day. This left Pamela crushed with guilt, believing she had somehow played a part in the woman's demise, like her brain had magical powers and she basically manifested the death of her babysitter. But the trauma didn't stop there. The shame surrounding her body and past experiences continued to plague her throughout her adolescence. At just 12 years old, a friend introduced her to a group of much older men, and she soon found herself in a chilling situation, alone with a 25-year-old man who took advantage of her innocence. After that incident, silence became her refuge as she buried the memory deep inside. So a 25-year-old. Just 2 years later, at the age of 14, a horrific gang of boys forcefully slept with her without her consent at the hands of her then boyfriend and 6 of his friends. So it was all 7 of them on her. This brutal experience pushed her further into a shell of shyness and self-doubt. In her mind, the recurring trauma shaped her identity, leading her to adopt an overtly sensual persona as a misguided attempt to reclaim some sense of power. This was the beginning of Pamela Anderson's complex relationship with her own image, a struggle for validation that will follow her into the glare of Hollywood lights.
I had a very adventurous, kind of wonderful upbringing. I mean, my upbringing was in nature and at the beach.
There was sort of abuse from your, it's weird to say this.
Babysitter. I know, it's hard to, it's like, I talk a lot about it in the book. I talk about just different things that, I wanted to talk about pivotal moments in my life, and there's definitely more good than bad. A babysitter, she, me when I was, probably about 6 years old, and I wished her dead, and then she died, and it's just a bunch of crazy things that have happened. I don't feel like a victim. I feel like there's things that happen in people's lives, and you have to get over them because they accumulate.
You hope that babysitter dies, she then dies. I can't imagine what that would do to you as a child.
Then a kid thinks that I did it. I thought my magical mind.
And you must have felt guilt, or you must
I felt guilt. I couldn't tell my parents anything.
Okay.
I was, taken advantage of when I was a young teenager, and again with a boyfriend and his friends, and I felt really shut down. I felt really confused. At 12 years old, when an older man me, I felt like it was imprinted on my forehead. As much as I didn't want to tell anybody, I felt like everybody knew.
Pamela Anderson's high school years at Highland Secondary School in Comics, British Columbia were anything but ordinary. Graduating in 1985, she was already a whirlwind of energy, playing on the volleyball team and making waves wherever she went. But deep down, a rebellious spirit was brewing, and it was clear she had a weakness for the bad boys. Her first taste of romance turned out to be a wild ride. Her first boyfriend had a twisted hobby of trying to run her over with his car and even tossed her out of a moving vehicle. Talk about a toxic relationship. Sadly, when she packed her bags and moved to Vancouver in 1988, hoping for a fresh start, her love life didn't get any better. She quickly fell for a new guy, only to find out he was sneaking around behind her back. In 1989, Pamela decided to ditch her small-town life for good. She found herself at a football game not because she was a fan, but because her friend had scored free tickets. Dressed in a Labatt's t-shirt, she was just one of the crowd until the camera caught her dazzling smile on the Jumbotron. Suddenly, she was a Blue Zone girl, and her life was about to change forever. Her unexpected fame turned heads, and Labatt's quickly reached out for her to star in a commercial. One thing led to another, and soon, Pamela was inundated with offers, including a life-changing call from Playboy asking her to be their cover model for the October issue. Thrilled and ready to seize the moment, she hopped on a plane to Los Angeles, where the glamorous Playboy mansion awaited her. As she stepped through the mansion's grand doors, it felt like walking into a fairy tale, over-the-top luxury and beautiful people everywhere. In her diary, she gushed, and I quote, "I am lost in amazement, surrounded by celebrities and stunning models." Pamela felt out of her league, but little did she know this was the setting for her transformation. In front of the camera, Pamela discovered a boldness she never knew she had. Initially shy, she later wrote, and I quote, "By the end of the week, you had to stop me from running out the door. Bare." It was her moment to reclaim her power in her own body like never before. Playboy saw her potential and wasted no time in making her a playmate. Pamela was crowned Playmate of the Month in February 1990, complete with a stunning centerfold that solidified her status. Seeking to enhance her allure further, she underwent breast implant surgery, boosting her bust size to a tantalizing 34D and later to a jaw-dropping 34DD. Her Playboy career became legendary, spanning over 2 decades and earning her more covers than any other model in the magazine's history. Pamela Anderson's rise to fame was anything but smooth, and one of the first harsh realities was the world's obsession with her looks, especially her infamous chest. The spotlight turned into a blinding glare, particularly after she decided to enhance her assets with plastic surgery. Suddenly, every interview revolved around her figure, leaving Pamela frustrated because she knew she had so much more to offer than just her curves.
You see, I read an article that said that Pamela really kind of resents being asked those kinds of questions. And wants to talk about philosophy, wants to talk about psychology, the things she studied, wants to talk about anything other than...
Ask her one of those philosophical questions that are burning on your mind.
What was your first love?
Her big break came when she landed the iconic role of CJ Parker on Baywatch. from 1992 to 1997, she became one of the show's longest-serving stars, captivating audiences worldwide. Her sultry looks and beach-ready body made her a household name. Even after Baywatch, she kept the flame alive by reprising her role in the reunion movie Baywatch Hawaiian Wedding 2003 and appearing in flashy commercials for DirecTV in 2007. Meanwhile, she continued to grace the cover of Outdoor Life magazine every year, solidifying her status as a pop culture icon. In 1993, she took a detour into the music world, appearing in Vince Neil's music video for Can't Have Your Cake. But it was 1994 that marked another turning point in her career when she snagged her first leading film role in Raw Justice, also known as Good Cop, Bad Cop. Starring alongside seasoned actors like Stacy Keach and David Keith, the film even won the Bronze Award at the World Fest Charleston in the dramatic category. Then came the 1996 film Barbed Wire, where Pamela played a character named Barbara Rose Kopetsky in a futuristic twist on Casablanca. Despite her star power, the movie flopped at the box office. Pamela wasn't shy about flaunting her body either. In May 2004, she bared it all on the cover of Playboy, followed by daring shoots for Stuff and GQ. She also strutted her stuff on the covers of prominent fashion magazines like W, British Marie Claire, and Elle Canada, as well as editorials for Russian Elle and V. In 2004, she co-wrote a book titled Star with Eric Shaw Quinn, diving into the life of a teenager chasing fame. The following year, she released Starstruck, a thinly veiled memoir about her tumultuous relationship with rock star Tommy Lee and the often brutal realities of celebrity life. Her influence was officially recognized in March 2006 when she received a star on Canada's Walk of Fame. But Pamela didn't stop there. In April 2006, she made history by hosting Canada's Juno Awards, becoming the first non-singer and model to take on the prestigious role. Pamela Anderson, the ultimate bombshell, has never been shy about sharing her opinions. And lately, she's taken a bold stance against the world of pornography. If you catch my drift, corn. I have to say corn for YouTube, okay? In a fiery 2016 op-ed for the Wall Street Journal, co-written with Orthodox Rabbi Shmuley Boteach, didn't hold back, labeling online porn as a public hazard of unprecedented seriousness. That provocative piece went viral, igniting debates across the globe. Together, they called for a sensual revolution to replace the soullessness of porn with genuine eroticism, where intimacy intertwines with love, physicality dances with personality, and raw pleasure blooms into meaningful relationships. Their powerful message resonated so much that they even took it to the prestigious halls of Oxford University, where they captivated over 1,000 attendees with their passionate lectures. Boteach praised Pamela for her fearless approach, saying, "It can be intimidating to talk about porn and eroticism alongside an international sex symbol, but I think Pamela has handled it extremely well." Not stopping there, the duo teamed up to write Lust for Love, released in 2018, a book that tackles the alarming decline of meaningful, passionate intimacy in today's world. They urged everyone to embrace a new sensual revolution, one that emphasizes deep connections in the bedroom. But Pamela's activism doesn't just end with the bedroom. On July 8, 2015, she made headlines by sending a heartfelt letter to none other than Vladimir Putin, pleading for the protection of whales. A staunch advocate for animal rights, she is an active member of People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, PETA, where she fights for the voiceless. In a surprising twist, she also threw her support behind WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, calling him a hero in a December 2016 statement to People magazine. She praised him for doing a great service to humanity, insisting that everyone in the world has benefited because of WikiLeaks. Fast forward to October 2019, and Pamela was gearing up for a trip to Australia, ready to challenge Prime Minister Scott Morrison to stand up for Assange. Her voice reached new heights on January 18, 2021, when she appeared on Tucker Carlson Tonight, urging President Donald Trump to pardon Assange. But her activism isn't limited to just one cause. Back in March 2005, she became the face of MAC Cosmetics' MAC AIDS Fund, helping raise awareness and funds for those affected by AIDS and HIV. Anderson also took on the role of celebrity spokesperson for the American Liver Foundation, serving as the Grand Marshal for the SOS Motorcycle Ride fundraiser. In a bold move in 2009, she even penned an open letter to President Barack Obama advocating for the legalization of cannabis. Now, as you can see, Pamela Anderson is a woman who is full of surprises and actually quite well spoken. She is well versed in politics, activism, and ironically, after years of participating in a system of over-sensualization, trying to bring back morality to America. Critics, of course, aren't buying it. She's not wearing makeup anymore and is fully clothed now on the carpets, and people are saying, how come once a woman gets older and can no longer use her body for monetization, she all of a sudden has a coming to Jesus moment? It's the same as man who perpetuates violence and degeneracy throughout their whole career, but as they get older and now they want to be the voice of the community, for example, like Jay-Z.
I know that you've been critical of, online and what that does to a relationship, what it does to a marriage. Does that include Playboy? Right, that's the obvious question.
I think Playboy is cute and titillating and girl next door. I don't really consider it. Some people might. If he is taking the place of your romantic relationship, if you haven't touched your wife in a year and you're in the basement watching, it's a problem. It's an addiction.
I've heard you describe yourself as a sex kitten and you enjoy that role, and you've been on the cover of Playboy 14 times. Is it hard for you to be a serious messenger?
But I kind of like not having much to live up to, because then I can surprise people. I form a full sentence. I'm a genius. I love feeling sexy and being a woman. You're able to be sexy, you're able to be a good mother. It doesn't mean you're a bad mother if you're covered in glitter and just got back from Vegas, a Vegas show.
So it did rise on huge debate, and it was like, okay, if you know Pamela, she's done like softcore movies where she's exposed herself, being touched and stuff like that, and done a lot of bare photography, bearing it all. And a lot of people are saying, well, we consider what you're doing that, but she said in an interview she never considered playing with Playboy or even those softcore movies that she did as part of Korn. But my thing is, if men, maybe looking at your bare photos, many men have, pleasured themselves to it. So a lot of them, I'm sure, hide it from their wives and stuff. And, you're like their dream girl or fantasy girl. It kind of, I don't know how you can separate the two. Can you separate the two? I'd like to see you guys discuss that in the comments. And I think especially when you know who Hugh Hefner is, and I will work on a documentary for him as well, just what he stands for in the Playboy Mansion. Like, could you, be a part of that lifestyle and speak so highly of it? Never had any regrets. She never had any regrets with being in a mansion. She even brought her kids to the mansion.
When I was doing Playboy and loving it and having so much fun and don't regret a thing and love it, I didn't know I'd have kids later.
Yeah. Right. We don't do things in your life thinking this is going to humiliate or embarrass my kids. And then I brought the kids to the Playboy Mansion every Easter, and I was getting in the car and Brandon came out, Mom, do you know what Hef does for a living? I was like, oh God, what? And he goes, he takes pictures of girls. And I was like, oh my God, get in the car, let's get out of here. I mean, you handle things the best you can. I mean, we all just do the best we can. And this was a crazy business for me. I never knew anything about it. I came from a little tiny town on Vancouver Island. I mean, there are some things where I just somehow I could have been so much worse. It could have been so much worse. So I had angels or something. I didn't realize how angry I was until I wrote my book. When I actually went back into those chapters and I wrote my book myself, I didn't have a ghostwriter. I did it all myself, and I felt like it just was unearthing this volcanic kind of anger I had.
Can you talk about that in the comments? I'm curious to see, because this is a debate that we will see that is a theme throughout her life. Before we go deeper into that debate though, I do want to do a beauty segment for Pamela Anderson, because for decades she has been our generation's Marilyn Monroe, the epitome of sex and beauty. She has been emulated by many like Beyonce, Khloe Kardashian, Cardi B, Lil Kim, Doechii, and more. Constantly her looks are being recreated. What was her secret? Well, we do know she has had plastic surgery, especially on her chest, but aside from that, for skincare, she uses rose water, vinegar, and toner. Anderson uses these ingredients in her homemade skincare routine, and when she was younger, she said actually she didn't really follow any diet. She was just a busy person, right? She also used rosehip facial oil. Anderson's initial decision to go makeup free in October was rooted in a desire for self-acceptance, or as she called it, freedom. Something just kind of came over me, and I was dressing in these beautiful clothes, and I thought, I don't want to compete with the to close. She wrote in a separate newsletter per Glamour, "I'm not trying to be the prettiest girl in the room. I feel like it's just freedom. It's a release," end quote. Now, Anderson wrote that she started her morning with a cup of tea, or at least she's trying to. Anderson prefers focusing on vegetables in each of her meals. "Vegetables sustain me," Anderson said. Anderson became a vegetarian in her early teens after her father went hunting and brought home a bloody deer. She eventually transitioned to a vegan diet in her 20s and promotes the benefit of a plant-based diet. She served as an executive producer for the 2018 plant-based documentary, The Game Changers, along with James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Jackie Chan. In 2024, Anderson published a plant-based cookbook, I Love You, Recipes from the Heart. Anderson will host Pamela's Cooking with Love, a plant-based cooking show on Flavor Network, so that's exciting. That's coming this year for her. As Pamela Anderson's star began to soar, she dove headfirst into a wild world of romance. She loved the thrill of being in love, but unfortunately it often led her into heartbreak. Her flings with guys like Kelly Slater and Scott Baio left her feeling disappointed, yearning for something deeper. Enter Sylvester Stallone, who is just as captivated by Pamela as the rest of Hollywood. He made her a jaw-dropping offer, a shiny Porsche and a luxurious condo in exchange for being his #1 girl. The idea of being just another name on his roster of women scandalized her as she turned him down flat. Stallone didn't mince words with Pamela. He shot back, "That's the best offer you're gonna get, honey. You're in Hollywood now," end quote. His message was clear that with her Playboy past, the big shots would always see her as an object for sale, like she could be purchased. One fateful night at the trendy club of Sanctuary, she encountered the notorious Tommy Lee, the wild drummer of Motley Crue. Their meeting was nothing short of legendary. In a celebratory mood, Pamela ordered a round of shots, but Tommy took it as his personal invitation to leave across the club. And the way they met was just so interesting. So she got everybody drinks, and then he came and sat next to her and licked her face. That was the first time they met. And then she went on to lick her friend's face. Everybody started licking each other's face at the club.
I had a place called Sanctuary, and I gave everybody a shot of Goldschlager. It was for New Year's, and he thought I only gave it to him. So he came bounding over, sat down next to me, and licked my face. And then I licked my friend's face, and we all licked each other's faces.
Wait, what do you mean you're all licking each other's faces?
I don't know. He started it, so we just started licking each other's faces around the table.
This random guy you've never met before is licking your face.
Right.
She gave him her number, and then he would leave her voicemails like, "My baloney has a first name. It's Large," making sensual innuendos and stuff. I can't. But with her busy work schedule, Pamela had no time to return his calls. Plus, she was already in a relationship. She tried to ignore him, but Tommy wasn't the type to be easily brushed aside. Eventually, she picked up the phone only to tell him she was off to Cancun. Despite her insistence that he shouldn't come, Tommy replied with determination, "I'll be there. I'll find you." And that is exactly what he did. When Tommy showed up in Mexico with his bandmates, Pamela finally relented and agreed to go out with him for one night. What could possibly go wrong, she thought to herself. They lost themselves in the music, in the moment, both high on life and each other. Pamela described the night as a big happy blur, filled with dizzying emotions. Then in a whirlwind of passion, Tommy popped the question, "Do you want to get married?" That same night. To her own shock, Pamela said yes, feeling a connection she had never experienced before. Instead of a classic diamond ring, Tommy slipped a massive skull ring from a friend onto her finger. They huddled in a booth, giddy with excitement, planning their spontaneous wedding on the spot. Just 4 days after the fateful night, they tied the knot on a beach. Pamela wore a bikini and Tommy sported board shorts. Definitely not your typical white wedding. In that moment, she felt like the luckiest girl in the world, convinced she had finally found her happily ever after.
I went to Mexico when I was with my girlfriend.
So he finds you in Mexico?
Yep. And I alerted the hotel, if anyone with tattoos comes, do not let him near here. Let's call Tommy. What's the worst that could happen? He's in town.
That is the worst that could happen, I would think.
I know.
He's in Motley Crue. They're one of the wildest rock bands in the world. The baddest of the bad boys. You know what you're buying into.
I knew it was probably bad. So then we go to a club, and he took the ring off his friend's finger and put it on mine and said, "Do you want to get married?" I said, "Sure." And we were married in 4 days.
You married in 96 hours after your first date.
Because it took us that long to find a priest. And, I remember calling my mother after it happened and saying, "I'm married." She's like, "To who?" I said, "Tommy." And she's like, "Who's Tommy?" And she was so upset.
Pamela Anderson's whirlwind romance with Tommy Lee was so explosive that she kept it a secret from her then boyfriend, Kelly Slater. Yeah, she had a boyfriend during this whole time. Like, she got married while she had a boyfriend until after she had already whispered, "I do." But this was just the beginning of a roller coaster ride, right? Once the newlyweds returned to reality, they found themselves in the crosshairs of relentless paparazzi. I mean, you got married 4 days, 96 hours after your first date. Paparazzi were eager to document every scandalous moment of their high-profile romance. The press was all over them, and it felt like there was no escape. While filming her first movie, Barbed Wire, Pamela discovered she was pregnant, but instead of slowing down, she doubled down, showing up for grueling 18-hour workdays, kickboxing, and squeezing into the tight corsets like a true warrior. However, one day she got on set and she was a little pale, and it turned out she ended up miscarrying a baby. So Tommy came to pick her up from the hospital, and the paparazzi was everywhere, and they were so angry. They just wanted to be left alone, and that's where you get clips of just Tommy Lee kicking in the paparazzi's windows in the car, and they just lost it. They crashed out. I just want to say that paparazzi was really crazy, especially in the 90s and early 2000s. There's no clip. I couldn't find the clip of the incident where they bashed a car window in, but I did find an incident where Tommy Lee was actually sued for this, but they were being harassed by paparazzi for just coming out, having a night out together, and they were going very low. The paparazzi asking, "Where's your baby?" I couldn't be a celebrity during that era. That's just crazy to me.
Tommy, come on, get in, Tommy.
Henry.
Shot now, dude.
How dare you spray pepper spray?
We didn't spray anything, lady.
I didn't do anything.
No, but your husband attacked a photographer
well,
out here.
Don't spray pepper spray down my
To act like a civilian in public.
You're a
drug fiend.
How dare you do
that? Where's your child this time of the morning? Where is your baby?
I'll kill you. You don't give it to me, man.
Hey, get control. Get control of yourself.
Woody,
come here, Woody. Woody, come here.
Hands off of me.
Woody, man.
I'm going to have him arrested right now. What?
I'm with you, man. You get strong.
Yeah.
Sergeant, tell me your That's it, man. You better fucking watch it. What?
Hey!
Watch it.
Hey!
Don't spray.
Stop it, JD. JD, stop it. You back off.
But the disaster struck again. It just kept going downhill from there. One day, Tommy went into the garage to retrieve something from their massive safe, only to find it missing. Panic set in, but it was nothing compared to what was to come. Soon, they received a chilling package in the mail, a VHS tape. In that gut-wrenching moment, Pamela realized that the missing safe contained their private home videos. So the founder of Penthouse wanted to buy the rights to the tape, offering them a staggering $5 million for it. But Pamela and Tommy knew this was something money couldn't buy, and they flatly refused to offer. Despite their best efforts to keep the tape from going public, it somehow leaked, and the paparazzi escalated their harassment to terrifying levels. Desperate to reclaim control, they hired a lawyer, but the 1997 deposition turned into a nightmare. In her documentary, Pamela recalled, and I quote, "I didn't know I was going to be completely humiliated. The lawyers basically said, 'You're in Playboy, you have no right to privacy,' end quote." What they failed to grasp was that Pamela had chosen to pose for Playboy while the tape was released without her consent. Ultimately, Pamela and Tommy dropped their lawsuits, completely underestimating the internet's power. Once the tape hit the web, it spread like wildfire, accessible to anyone and everyone. In her documentary, she lamented, "You can't put a monetary number on the amount of pain and suffering that it caused."
I was a big fan of your Tommy Lee.
I've never seen it.
You've never seen it?
No.
It's fantastic. Did you make a mint off of that?
I made not $1.
I thought you guys made a deal.
Property. No, we made a deal to stop the shenanigans. I'm not going to court anymore. I'm not being deposed anymore by weird lawyer men. I don't want to talk about my vagina anymore or public sex, anything. Bob Guccione tried to offer us millions of dollars. We said no. And it was already out at that time. Damage was done. So
I figured that you, like the Kim Kardashian Ray J thing, wound up making mint off of it.
No, we never made $1.
Wow. Apparently, $77 million, they reckon, was the revenue from this tape. Have you ever seen any of that money?
Never, not a dime, never. The damage was done, it's out. And it was stressful for both of us, and we just wanted to move on with our lives. What is it like?
I mean, even for you, where you'd done lots of, Playboy shoots by then and so on.
It was really devastating. I'm sure this is the biggest reason, along with you know, I think it was just accumulated, all this stress. We had a lot of stress. This really did not help our marriage.
After that, Pamela felt like her entire image was shattered. The entertainment industry turned her into a punchline for their crude jokes. While the scandal only added to Tommy Lee's rock star allure, Pamela realized with a heavy heart, I knew at that point that my career was over. And people's point was, you know, you already bared it all. It's not like we're seeing something we haven't seen before. The only thing is that instead with the softcore, you never really saw, you know, penetration. That was the only difference that was in the film. So they weren't really taking her seriously versus, you know, like my Jane Kennedy video where she was like well respected, always fully covered and stuff like that. And a tape of her and her husband was released because it was stolen and all that came with it, where people could understand Jane Kennedy. What Pamela was like, girl, you're gonna pose bare again, so why are you so traumatized, right? But it's a violation of privacy. And she felt like, okay, there's a limit. She still has parents and now kids. She has regrets, you know, with that it's out there that you didn't put that out there. You can kind of justify bearing it all. It's just work. It's just Playboy. But we'll talk about that later. Caught in the whirlwind of work and raising her 2 boys, Pamela Anderson tried to prioritize her family, but Tommy Lee was having none of it. He couldn't handle the thought of losing her love and attention. In her revealing documentary, she recounts a chilling moment when Tommy Lee laid on the floor moaning, I want my wife back, I want my wife back, begging for her affection like a lost child. But when Pamela finally stood up for herself and demanded his support, Tommy's jealousy erupted into chaos. During her last season on Baywatch, she had to kiss her co-star David without giving Tommy a heads up. His reaction was nothing short of terrifying. In a fit of rage, he stormed into the set and completely wrecked her trailer, punching cabinets and throwing things around like a man possessed. Tommy's inability to control his jealousy turned into a dark shadow that loomed over Pamela's life. Pamela decided to call 911 when the police arrived. They took Tommy into custody and he faced serious charges for the way things he was doing, right?
How did it feel when Tommy went to jail?
The reason that this happened is because he was on steroids. I didn't know that he was on steroids. He was trying to get bigger for me. He's always really skinny, and it just changed. He'd come after me with these black eyes. I didn't know much about steroids and how it makes people aggressive, but over time, I found out that I think that's what happened.
What was the violence that actually happened there? Who hit who first?
Holding Dylan, and he took Brandon and ran out the door with him, and I don't know, it was something I had to call 911, and then when he knew that I did that, then he smashed my head into the phone. It just got very ugly.
After the incident, Tommy was prohibited from coming near Pamela and their kids, eventually serving 6 months in jail. He held out hope for reconciliation, but Pamela had made up her mind. She wanted a divorce, and nothing could change that. Despite his desperate letters pleading for her to take him back, she stood firm, her heart heavy with the pain of lost love. In her diaries, she wrote, I've never loved someone so deeply, and by deeply, I mean I loved his soul. I feel like part of me has died, end quote. As Pamela's boys grew older, they began to uncover the truth about their infamous parents and the scandalous tape that haunted their family. The rumors swirled like a storm, with whispers suggesting that Pamela and Tommy had leaked the footage themselves as a publicity stunt. That wasn't even the worst part of her romance with Tommy. She also got hepatitis C from him. Hepatitis C can be transmitted through, sensual activity. The risk is higher for people who have multiple partners or who have intimacy with men who have intimacy with other men, like gay men. If you're a woman dating a down low man, then, it's easier to catch. But Pamela stated that Tommy got it from sharing needles, and that's how she got it. For Pamela Anderson, a hepatitis C diagnosis seemed like a death sentence. They said I would die in 10 years, Anderson said. When someone tells you something like that, you kind of act differently subconsciously. Anderson has lived with the virus for more than 15 years, but she learned that she had been cured of the virus after completing a 12-week regimen with a substance called Sovaldi. 12 weeks and gone. Yes, she said, I feel like I got 20 years back of my life. Anderson said the treatment cost around $100,000 and was covered by her health insurance. Healthy once more, Anderson is back focusing on projects like her cooking show and Vegan Shoe line.
And they called me and said, there's a cure. And Tommy did it first, so he got cured first, but he had a different kind of treatment because he did it a year earlier than me.
Pamela Anderson tells ET her ex, Tommy Lee, is also now Hep C free.
And 20 years ago, when they told me I had Hep C, they told me I'd only live 10 years.
The former couple was diagnosed with the disease at the same time. Pamela says it came from sharing a tattoo needle in 2002. And the Baywatch babe opened up to ET about her treatment.
There's different types of Hep C, and I had a more not common one, the same as Tommy, but our type we took 2 pills a day. I took 2 pills a day for 3 months, but if you had type 1, for instance, you'd only take 1 pill a day, and you may only need to take it for 8 weeks. I took mine for 12 weeks, so mine was a little more hard to cure, but it still worked.
In 2006, Pamela took another shot at love, marrying musician Kid Rock, but it quickly became clear that he couldn't measure up to the fiery passion she had shared with Tommy. Kid Rock just didn't ignite the same spark, and the bar Tommy had set felt impossibly high. Undeterred, Pamela tried again the following year, this time with professional poker player Rick Solomon. However, his struggle with addiction became a dark cloud over their relationship, leading Pamela to annul the marriage. But their story didn't end there. Years later, in 2014, they decided to give it another go after Rick got clean. Yet, even with his newfound sobriety, their relationship fizzled, resulting in another painful separation. From 2017 to 2019, she dated French football star Adil Rami. Then, on December 24, 2020, Pamela shocked everyone by marrying her bodyguard, Dan Hayhurst. However, just over a year later, on January 21st, 2022, she filed for a divorce, once again searching for stability in a sea of turmoil. Just when Pamela thought she was finding her footing, Hollywood decided to drag her through the mud once more. A television series titled Pam and Tommy was in the works, centered around their infamous leaked tape. The very idea of her private life being exploited for entertainment sent shivers down her spine. She confessed, "It really gives me nightmares. I have no desire to watch it, not gonna watch it, never watch the tape, I'm not gonna watch this one." Pamela Anderson's life has been a tumultuous ride filled with passionate love, devastating heartbreak, and just a lot of relentless things just happening, right? So I do want to get back to the debate. Could someone so hypersexual for so long all of a sudden speak against the very things she did to become famous? Well, in my opinion, yes. Who else would be a better candidate than the one who lived a lifestyle and can tell you firsthand about the damage it causes? From her sons now being older and she having some regrets with how things unfolded, to how disrespectful men in the industry will be to you when you decide to lead with your sexuality, she has a lot of gems she has shared with the public that I think is very helpful and necessary.
It's hard because it's readdressing everything and it's bringing things up. But I feel like this was my purpose. This was my purpose on earth. Yeah. The reason everything, I went through everything so I can write about it and that maybe someone can be helped by it too. It's a choice that I've made. I've always been a big reader. I'm an insatiable learner. I like to learn, so I studied a lot of psychology very early on. My Memories, Dreams, and Reflections, one of the first books I read by Carl Jung. It's not an easy read to be like diving into it all. And I was just devouring this and thinking, alchemy and Marie-Louise von Franz and Devotion Fairy Tales, Robert Bly, Iron John. Go every single Bullfinch's mythology.
Does it feel like when you take your story back?
I feel great because I'm talking about the stuff that I care about. Like right now, you're asking me questions about what I care about instead of my boyfriends and my boobs. That's kind of what it always was. I go off on tangents and it just it goes into poetry. I could talk about authors I've just read or politics or activism or Julian Assange, or things. I just kind of go all over the place. I'm just really grateful that I've been able to tell my story. It's been the weight of the world off my shoulders, maybe. I see a lot of tears, a lot of young girls saying this has really helped me a lot, and I feel empowered by what I've gone through. So
perfect people don't have triumphant testimonies like this. Yes, unfortunately, it's not until we get a lot older do we understand the true consequences behind our actions as youth. For instance, until you're in your 50s and start to have medical crisis, you don't really understand the consequences of eating burgers and drinking beer every day in your youth. So as you're older, you try to educate those who are younger on how to eat. Imagine them saying, "How dare you give me advice on how to eat when you had your whole leg cut off from diabetes? You are in no position to give advice because you're so overweight and sick." That would be insane, right? Because yes, absolutely, I would want advice from the sick, overweight person on what foods to avoid because it is what got them there. In the same manner, I feel the same about the corn industry and Playboy models, etc. Please teach these young girls that though this lifestyle seems glamorous, you will have to fight for decades for people to respect you. They might smile in your face, but there are undressing you with their eyes. Find the love and fulfillment you need from within and from Jesus. Heal your traumas before marriage and dating, and never blame yourself for the cruel things adult did to you as a child. And I commend her for not being shy and speaking up and just not caring about the backlash. Although, you know, like some people feel like, okay, you're talking about it, but you're still not showing any remorse. For the Playboy part, she still feels like, hey, that's cute, that's fun. And Playboy has a very problematic history. And when I do my video on Hugh Hefner and just the start of Playboy, since Marilyn Monroe, who had issues with it, that's how long, you know, it's been around. Yeah, it does have a problematic history, and it kind of remind me of Brooke Shields, which I did a video for. I think you guys should check out. Brooke Shields talk about the industry, but still kind of talk in a dreamy way about the things that she had to endure in them that to us is like problematic. Like she posed for Playboy when she was not even 12, you know, bare. And I don't know, I can't see what's wrong with it. So, it's interesting to see, but I do know growing up, 2000s, early 2000s, when you're in school, it was like America's Next Top Model was on air, and you know, you have people like Carmen Electra, Pam Anderson and stuff, and all everyone kept saying is to be a model or to be in the industry, it's inevitable that you will have to bear it all. You know, on a magazine cover or be in a film, they will have to see your chest as part of the industry. You can't avoid it. Like, I literally can vividly recall my aunt having that conversation with my sister and myself, saying that because we used to watch America's Next Top Model and pretend we were strutting and this and like, oh my goodness, who would want to be models? Or we wanted to go to Disney Channel and be the next Raven Simone. And my aunt literally told us that, yeah, eventually, you know, you're going to have to bear it all because that's just the price to pay for the industry. And she was talking like this because literally everyone was doing it. It was normal for Hollywood stars. The women didn't like it. It's not that they were comfortable. Like Kate Moss, I did a video for her also. Kate Moss talked about how uncomfortable she was and was grown men on set. And she was like 14. She was 12, 14, 16, you know, bearing it all on photography with grown men in their 40s and 50s taking photos of her being on set. A lot of stuff happened to these models. A lot of stuff happened to these actresses. And it was just the norm where we as a society thought, hey, it's just part of it. So them also, they tell themselves, well, it's art. It's cute. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think they've lied to themselves for so long that unfortunately, Pamela Anderson can't see the problem and posing, you know, for that, how it contradicts her talking about corn, because she, beautifully well-spoken exposés and lectures that she does on the damage that the corn industry does to marriages, to people, to intimacy, even psychologically and physiologically. Very well-spoken. There's been a lot of research on this where that's just the reality, you know? But how can you not relate that to Playboy? It's all the same. I mean, it's feathers from the same bird. It's just all feathers from the same bird, okay? And I feel like you have to denounce all facets and all areas of this type of industry. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people feel, even in the rap industry now, we did a video on Lil' Kim, though she brought that to rap because there was a time in rap you didn't need that. But once Lil' Kim opened the floodgates for that, it became the new norm. You don't see rappers like Queen Latifah anymore. Check out my Lil' Kim documentary as well. You don't see rappers like Queen Latifah or MC Lyte or anything like that. You Salt and Pepper dressed up fully, you know. Now everyone, even the ones that will start off fully dressed or have a little tomboy appeal, will go and get the BBLs and strip bare. And it just seems like it's the consumers. But are we tired of it yet? I don't think we're tired of it yet. People love it because secretly they indulge in it. So it's just going to be a thing, unfortunately. But to anyone watching that aspire to get into this industry, it's really tough. We see some of the pitfalls that Pamela talked about, like Sylvester Stallone with the audacity to be like, girl, welcome to Hollywood, because anybody that want to be with you that's famous is technically buying you for a time, right? and I'm the best you're gonna get, you know? Like, this is how they treated these women, especially if these women had a over-sexual image. And we talked about the same thing with Lil' Kim, and there were some people that were upset with what I was saying. But yeah, you have that image. That's how you're portrayed. Unfortunately, that's just the toxicity of men. And yes, you can say men need to change and be better and this. Yeah, they do. But unfortunately, that's just how it's going to be received. You know, it's so unfortunate because Pamela is very educated, very beautiful. And if you hear her talk about philosophy, she's a great poet also. She wrote a lot of poetry in her book. I think her book, if you want to listen to it on Kindle, Audible, or purchase it, is very worthwhile. She has a lot of poetry that she's written also. And her thought process is just brilliant to me. And I do consider her as like a genius just in how she can go into tangents a lot, like she said for herself. And she's just very a wordsmith, very savvy. Just reminds me a lot of Marilyn Monroe. I did a video on Marilyn Monroe also, and she was very brilliant as well. But unfortunately, that's not what the media sees first. And that's not what they will be remembered for. And it's unfortunate, but I love that she's rewriting her story. Leave her some flowers in the comments. And I'm curious to see, what do you guys think? I love you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you in the next one.